my short-term mission trip to Hong Kong. My last year of college, that would have been 2016, and I went to Hong Kong with a group called CTI Music Ministries. I've always loved going on short-term mission trips, go on the trips to Mexico here with the church quite often, and as part of the church one year, we sent a group to Urbana, which is where I connected with CTI Music Ministries, and seemed to be a really good pairing of my desire to serve in a time of life when I had that flexibility, and also the gifts that I serve with at the church. So on the missions trip, there were kind of two sections. One was a training where we spent some time out in Minnesota, in the town of Willmar, went through 3 to 4 weeks of intensive just musical training as well as missions training before we went to Hong Kong. Then we boarded up on a plane, went to Hong Kong, and partnered with a local organization there to go around and minister using the gospel, and essentially, although we didn't speak the language, give this ministry a platform to enter into schools and into larger venues to share the word of God through our music as foreigners coming to play music for them. There were significant challenges and difficulties that I faced on this trip. This was honestly the trip that I think really forced me to come to terms with my faith and also really critically look at what loving each other and being a loving church looks like. So on this trip, I was faced with some of the things I like the least, which are Christians who aren't loving, people who are aggressively oppressive or negative in positions of leadership, and also organizations that frankly did not care for the people who were participating with them. All of the things I just talked about surprised me most on the trip. It was obviously not what I expected going into the trip. Not what I expected to have Christians not loving each other, mistreating each other in some situations. But ultimately I found that God was served even in those struggles. Leading up to the trip, I saw God working in me with a very distinct requirement to surrender to Him. At the time, I was going through some more acute mental health challenges, which is always something I've dealt with in my life, but was at that time very prevalent. And ongoing with that, I felt the need, leading up to the trip, to be honest with myself about where I was at, is also honest with the ministry that I was partnering with. So that was a big area of trust. Another area of trust was actually becoming subservient to the leadership structure that was in place for this trip. I had to make a decision if, although things weren't being done exactly the way that I would do them, if I'd continue to partner in the ministry with them. And in prayerful consideration, I found the answer to be yes. And so during the trip, that was the other element of seeing God work in me, as well as how He worked in me after the trip. The trip impacted me very heavily after I came back. I actually left the trip early, just based on where I was at personally with my health, as where I was at, as well as where I was at with the team that I was serving with. It was no longer a safe situation for me to be in, which is a hard thing to come to terms with as somebody who wants to be capable, wants to be effective, wants to be impactful, to ultimately come to the realization that you not only can't do those things in the situation you're in, but you also can't bear to be in that situation anymore. So leaving the trip was something that was challenging for me and a learning opportunity, and coming back into what that looked like for me after in terms of dealing with the repercussions of that, as well as ultimately finding my way back to Discovery Hills, was another big impactful item for me. The trip affected my relationship with God. I think in the same way we see all of our trials impact our relationship with God, which is, even if it raises questions, even if it raises pain, even if it raises concerns, by clinging to Him, over years. By clinging to him over years, I found that relationship to be deepened, and I found that he provided for me in my times of struggle and in my mistakes, and he still loved me and cared for me, and had his best in mind for me. I feel like I might have a harder pitch than other people who've been on a missions trip, but if I were to encourage others to go on a missions trip, I would say the following. I would say, don't go because it will be easy. Because even the best missions trips are, if they're done well, not easy. There is sacrifice. There is suffering, whether it's mixing cement in Mexico or something that you haven't planned on, like mixing cement in Mexico. But all of the sacrifice, whether it's leading up to the trip or going through the trip, and the enhanced focus on God as you look to serve him very explicitly with that time and that preparation and in that actual service, really allows you to encounter God in ways that you wouldn't otherwise in your day-to-day life, with the distractions around you, with your own agenda, with your own to-do list, with your own responsibilities. It's very humbling and very freeing to experience the gospel in a tangible way as you serve on that missions trip. I think everybody should go on a missions trip, and that it's a great opportunity to grow, a great opportunity to challenge your own lifestyle, your own preconceptions, and really surrender to God in a tangible way that will impact you and the others around you in a great way. I'm impressed. Are you doing the soft focus on the edge of the nose, or like I don't know how this goes?
Not that intense.